Here we are. Hi guys. For those who joined, I'm just going to wait a few minutes before starting, just to allow people to join. Hi, Cablo Studios. Do you want to write in the chat a bit about what you're up to just before, just to let people join? So for those who are just joining, I'm just going to wait a few minutes before beginning, just to let so people come in. Dr. Shepo, do you want to let me know what you're up to? Cool. So we've had a few more people join. Just so you guys know, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes just before we start. If you guys want to say hi in the chat, let me know what you're up to. Good to know. Perfect. Just give it a few more minutes. From Greece. That's cool. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining. Hi, Jasmine. An animation production company based in Johannesburg. Great. And how's it going? Are you looking to raise money at the moment? Have you raised money? If you guys want to write some stuff in the comments, we'll see it and we'll answer some questions at the end. Oh, great. So just a few more minutes, just to wait, let people join. Oh, awesome, Jasmine. What do you do? What's your business? And have you raised money before? Is it the first time? Is there anything you'd like me to focus on? Fashion designer and have a tea and granola company. Oh, brilliant. Looking to raise money for the studio. Okay, great. First time, no money. Are you raising money for the, so it's not the fashion thing, it's the tea and granola company. That's cool. Well, hopefully I'll give you a bit of an insight. Guys, I think I'll just kick off and start. Let me just share my screen. Here we are. I'm hoping you guys can all see what I can see. I can't see the chat now. But I'm going to kick off. So yeah, thanks to the Purposeful Project for having me on today. I think it's important that a lot of people hear from founders who have been through raises. It's an interesting thing to undertake. And I think we hear a lot of stuff from VCs and various other people who tell us about what it's like to raise money. But again, I think it's just important that from having it from a founder's perspective, I put this deck together super quickly. It's not designed, it's not beautiful, but I want it to be more of a Q&A. So I've got it to about half past. So I'll hopefully rapidly go through this, and then please chuck any of your comments in the comment section, and then we can go through them and try and help. But yeah, so just a bit about me quickly. I'm Josh. I'm the founder and CEO, joint CEO. My other CEO will be annoyed, at New Lane. I've so far set up a successful brand agency where we work with some of the world's leading brands. I've currently raised about 1.5 million for my startup New Lane. And we're actually in the middle of a small raise at the moment. I'm a Virgin startup mentor. So Virgin asked me to help a few of their companies that are on their roster. And I'm also an advisor to several startups, helping them with anything from raising investment to marketing to ideation to everything really. And it's the bit that I enjoy. I enjoy little seeds of ideas and turning them into something. So diving straight in, I think getting investment ready, I get sort of astounded by the amount of early stage founders and startups who don't know where to begin when it comes to raising investment. And I always say it begins with the 3 holy docs, which probably sounds more glamorous than it actually is. But the way that I did it myself and the way that I help other brands and companies raise money is by starting with these 3 documents: a business plan, a pitch deck, and a financial model. A business plan is what I always call being sick on a page, and mine looks something similar to that in terms of our content. But we largely include what's the business about, what's the vision, why you're raising investment, a lot about your product in the middle bit. So that includes the market, the team, the route to market, how you're going to generate revenue, what staff you think you're going to need. As I say, it's kind of being sick on a page, it's putting everything into this document. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter how long this document is. It's just about putting all of your thoughts onto a page. The pitch deck then for me is a distillation of that business plan. So you shift it into 15, 20 slides, if you're awesome, 10 slides. And it includes, all the meaty stuff that you need to get across to investors when you talk to them. So again, it's, who are we? What's the market about? How are we going to generate revenue? And then sitting behind all of that, because investors are obviously interested in financial models, you need to have some sort of financial model behind it. And that's mine there. But as you can see, running along the bottom, we've got an assumptions page, we've got a P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, marketing model. But sometimes they don't have to be as sort of advanced as this. This has taken me years to build. But it is important to have projections sitting behind it. I could do a session, literally probably 5 hours on each one, but we don't have time now. But if you want to ask me any questions on those three things, then feel free to. But I think once you have these three things created and ready to go, I believe you are ready to then go out to investors. It's a great process to go through to really make sure that you've got all of your ducks in a row with the different parts of your business. Deciding on how much to raise. I apologize for these weird pictures of people at the bottom, but I quite like them. But literally it is kind of like that sometimes. There are different schools of thought when it comes to deciding how much you actually want to raise. And I sort of abide by two, and it depends on the startup that you've got. It depends on your business. It depends on your sector. It depends on your industry. It depends where you are as a business. But I think route A is raising enough money to get to certain milestones. So I think Jasmine in the comments was just saying that she hasn't raised any money before. She now wants to raise some money for her tea brand. You can either decide that 100 grand is what you want to raise, and it's going to get you to this certain point. And then once you get to that point, you're then going to raise again, and it's going to get you to the next milestone. And then the next milestone, you'll raise a bit more, and that's going to get you to the next milestone. The positives of that is that hopefully you hold on to more of your equity as a founder, because you're increasing the value of your business as you go. And I'm going to talk about company valuation in a second. But milestone-based raising is one that I really like, and it's one that I started with. So for my startup, I raised, I think it was 125K from friends and family. We then did another 100 during COVID as a bridge round, and then we went and raised $1 million. Route B is that you actually raise more than you think, and you just go for it. So I've sort of merged these two, because that last round that I've done that I just spoke about, which was my seed round where we raised $1 million, that was we basically thought we needed 500K, but we ended up raising $1 million, because things do cost more and takes more time than you always think. And I've put there, you can bet your bottom dollar you'll need it. You will need more money, I think, depending on where you are, or if you're Superman, you won't, but it's always good to have more cash flow if you're thinking of raising investment. So those are the two things that I believe that companies can approach when they're deciding how much to raise. Moving on to valuation, which I just mentioned, it's a dark art. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of people that try and tell you that it's not, or that there is a science to it. From my experience, there is no science unless you're a big company and you can do some calculations. But just to explain to a few of you who probably or might not understand what setting a valuation is, a valuation is what you value your company at. And it's a very hard thing to do, but that calculation on the first line is a very basic understanding of how it works. So if you're raising £100,000 and you value your business at £1 million post money, which means that once all the money's in, that's how much it's worth, you will be giving away 10% equity of your business. If you double that, you can do the maths. There is a thing that can help you online to calculate how much equity you'll give away. But that's essentially how you decide what your valuation is, and then how much equity you give away to investors. as I said before, no one knows how to set your valuation, but I think being bold and reasonable are the right way to go. So I know they're counterintuitive, but what I've learned is that if you really believe in what you're doing, you could set that valuation at a relatively high level, but still being reasonable. Because the last thing you want to do is approach an investor with a stupid valuation where they get 2% of your business and you're really early stage. It's just not going to be attractive to them. So I think there is a sweet spot about being bold and reasonable. I think starting at a sub 1 million valuation could be the right way to go. But again, it depends on your business. Being precious about equity. I think equity is a really interesting thing for founders. I mean, I really thought that I wanted to hold on to my equity at all points. I got very precious about it and I was very uptight. But I think what I've learned over time is that keeping your equity, knowing you need to raise is again sort of counterintuitive. I think you need to give away equity in order to bring on the right investors, in order to bring on capital to grow your business. And there's that old age saying, which is 100% of nothing is nothing. So it's taken me a long time to get to grips with being comfortable with giving away part of my shares in my business. But ultimately, if you need to raise capital, it's the thing that you need to do. So approaching the right investors. I mean, I spent an absolute shitload of time wasted on approaching the wrong people. So I approached tech investors when my business is hardware. I approached investors where their investment mandate was about marketplaces and tech stacks. And they came back to me and went, thanks for wasting your time, mate. But, we focus on tech and marketplaces, not hardware. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and it's very easy to do. It's also really easy to get sucked into the Silicon Valley VC dream, which you hear a lot of people talk about all the time. And I don't know if any of you know who that is on the bottom right, but he's a hilarious character in the TV series Silicon Valley. He's a billionaire investor who drives a Lamborghini. He's an absolute horrible weirdo. And you don't want people like him on your board, obviously. But the point is that there is a sort of, I need to get a VC on board thing. And I don't think that is the right approach when you're first starting to raise money. It could be when you get to a later round. But where we started, and I found it to be really successful, was friends and family. So you dip into your close networks. Then you go out to sort of a broader range of angel investors who are typically a lot friendlier. They actually like to take more risk, and they're doing it because they're passionate about the thing that you're trying to create. And then also reaching out to some SEIS and EIS funds. For those who don't know what SEIS is, it's called the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. And the Enterprise Investment Scheme, you can apply for it as a startup, and it's a government incentive to get investors to invest in early stage companies. So the investor gets money back if it all goes wrong. I've probably butchered what that means, but that's essentially the essence of it. I've just put a little note in there, but the different rounds, and I hate this, and I hate all the jargon, but you've got a pre-seed round, which is typically, small at the beginning. And then you've got a seed round, which is probably anywhere up to £1 million. And then you move on to your series A's and B's, where you start to get into some real millions into the business. But, to start off with a pre-seed round, you should definitely go for friends and families and angels. Securing investors, I've put someone yawning. It is boring, but it has to be done. You've got to make sure you've got a lawyer who understands closing rounds and doing all the boring paperwork. You have got to do shareholders agreements, articles of association, they're called. They're two documents that investors like to see. Then you've got to issue shares. So having a lawyer who understands that is really important. Making sure your cap table is up to date. I don't know if all of you know what a cap table is, but it's just a relatively simple table which has all of your shareholders in one list, and it says what percentage and how many shares they own in the other columns. So it's just keeping tabs on who's got what equity in your business. As you're closing investors, some investors might ask for a board seat, which means that they can make certain decisions in your company, and they sit alongside you and they'll want to meet you every month. The level down from that, they're called board observers. And a board observer is someone who just observes the board. So you send them information and they look at it, but they can't make decisions and they don't actually have a board seat. Or they just be a shareholder. And I think the reason I said not to go for VCs and maybe funds at the beginning is because angel investors and friends and family won't want board seats, and you won't have to get involved in that. So the business is up to you. But that's that. And then I guess this is my favorite slide, the emotional stuff. And this is what a lot of people don't talk about enough, I don't think. It's all about the sort of glitz and glamour of raising. But from a fellow founder to a bunch of founders who are thinking of raising money, it is hard. It's really hard. And it does take a long time, unless you've got some incredible unicorn style business. It's going to take you a long time, and it is going to be hard, but that's okay. That's part of it's part of it. You may get sick of pitching. I certainly got sick of pitching, but you've got to stick with it. Ultimately, you will go around pitching to loads of people, and loads of people will say no. So you will stop counting how many no's you get. I mean, we had a spreadsheet, I probably should have put it on here, that had hundreds of people on it, of which hundreds of no's. On the column on the right, I used to turn amber, green, or red, and there was a hell of a lot of reds on there. But we got to the greens, which is the most important thing. And the way we got to those greens was by changing our strategy and pivoting. You will or may have to, if your approach isn't working, change your strategy and keep pivoting probably multiple times. Changing your approach, reaching out to people in different ways, reaching out to different people, using brokers or whatever it is, you might need to keep changing. But just know that all of that is normal, and it's okay. It's okay. But you'll get there. And I think the positive thing is that there is light at the end of the tunnel if you set it all up in the right way. The snowball effect is real. We got a fund on board. We were really struggling to raise. We then got a fund. And once we landed that fund, we then went out to a bunch of other investors. And once we landed them, we landed another one, and then another one, and then another one. Because you say he's in, he or she's in, they're in, and then all of a sudden you get this beautiful snowball effect of people committing money, which is what you need. The process can be really fun. There are similarities between chasing a girl or a guy you like, and I had to put that in because it's true. Sometimes when you find fun in chasing that person that you want to be with, and it can be like that. Sending out investor messages and chasing them and pitching. It can be a really good experience if you change the perspective. And once you get to the finish line, you can then crack on and build your business. I mean, you don't have to talk about it anymore. I mean, for a long time, I was talking about what I could do with the money. And then as soon as I got it, I could do those things. So you can then crack on and do it. And you might even pay yourself properly. And that guy at the bottom right there has clearly paid himself because he looks really happy. And I look like that too. The weird thing about paying yourself is that investors actually want you to. They want you to pay yourself well. I thought that once you raise money, actually, I set out to be on a really tiny salary and be struggling. But if you get the right investors, it's the opposite of that. They want you to be comfortable and secure, which means that you're in a good place to be able to execute the business. So that's an interesting point for all of you. So that's it. I'm going to shut up now, and you guys could ask me any questions you want. If you want to send me an email or anything, it's josh@wearenewlane.com. I can try and help you. As I say, I help and I enjoy helping startups from the beginning. So if you've got any questions, just let me know. I think Talia's gonna moderate them in the chat, and we can bring you up to the stage if you put your hand up. So yeah, feel free to ask some questions. I hope that was helpful. As I say, if anyone wants to come on stage. So I've got a question here. How do you handle asking funds for a non-profit? Interesting question. I mean, I haven't ever worked for a non-profit before, being totally frank. So I'm not sure how that would work, Pim. But I'm sure it's very similar to raising money for anything. You've got to make sure that you have a solid proposition. You've got to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row, and you've got to make sure that you know what you're asking the funds for. I hope that's helpful. Hey, Dr. Sabir, how are you doing?
Hi, Josh. Yeah, good, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the presentation today. My question is, well, I've got two questions. The first one is, what do investors not like seeing? So what are some red flags for investors? Because, it's quite easy to talk about what investors like to see, but what are the things that they don't like to see with angels? And the second part of the question is, how long should a funding round take? Because it takes, I'm told it can be anywhere from like 3 to 6 months. So you need to dedicate time for that. So just wondering from your experience, what you've seen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Have you raised before? Have you
No, so we're only 6 months in. So my company's called Well Squared. My background is science and medicine. So yeah, we're early days still. So maybe next year.
So the doctor tag is real.
Yeah, it is real.
Yeah, no, great questions. I mean, so based on the first one, I mean, from my experience, weirdly, sort of one founder teams has been a sticking point. We've helpfully always had the luxury of having two founders because that's what I wanted to do at the beginning. But I think a lot of investors obviously want to see a solid and robust team, and I think because they know how hard it is to do everything, and not one person can do it all, then they look for solid, strong teams. So maybe it's not a co-founder, but it's having people around you that can really help you do the things that you need to do. So I think having a strong team is definitely one. So they don't like to see, I don't think, one founder teams from my experience. In terms of valuation, sorry, in terms the other thing is valuation. I spoke about that quite a lot. I think investors don't like to see ridiculously punchy valuations, especially from the size you are. So I think it's kind of counterintuitive what I said in the deck. You know, you've got two things. You've got, I want to be bold because I don't want to give away all of my business, which is an interesting point. But at the same time, I don't want to scare investors off by saying the business is worth £6 million right now. So it's finding that sweet spot. And I think the one thing I would say, just to be positive about not going too punchy, is going out to investors, you will quickly begin to realize if your valuation is stupid, because you'll start getting comeback. And once you get loads of comeback, it means you just got to pivot, right? I mean, there's no harm in just changing your valuation when you start getting feedback that says that it's not right or it's too high. If that makes sense. It's quite a fluid process. But I think valuation, one founded teams, ridiculous figures, ridiculous numbers. I mean, ultimately, people know that they are projections, but if you've got like a crazy EBITDA in year 3 of something astronomical, you will get asked. And if you can't back it up, then you've got a problem. But if you can back it up, then brilliant. If you can't, then you're just going to get sort of ripped apart by some sort of financially minded investors. So I'd just be careful about that. I think investors want you to be punchy again, but they also want you to be fair. I think investors also don't like when you don't know the failures or the potential pitfalls. In our pitch deck, we actually weirdly have a slide at the end which says it's an appendix, which is a risk analysis. So it literally says there's like 5 risks, and it says risk, we don't launch on time, mitigation, this. And I think investors don't like it when you say, no, there's nothing, there's nothing that's going to go wrong, we got it all covered. That's another thing that I would definitely advise to focus on. I mean, I could go on forever on that question because there's quite a few things, but I hope that's helpful. In terms of your second question about how long the round should take, mate, it's so hard to answer. It took us, I don't know, anywhere between 6 months plus, 7 months, 8 months. I've seen some people do it really, really quickly. When I say really quick, a month or 2, but that's because they've got the network to do it. Or it could be a year plus, because one of our rounds took us ages. We struggled for a very long time. And then, as I said, we sort of pivot and changed our approach, and it worked. And then we started to get that snowball effect. But the one thing I would just, don't beat yourself up. I would start raising earlier than you probably think you need to. But don't beat yourself up if it is taking ages, because it's part of the course. So I hope that's helpful, man.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool, thanks. I just got another question here from Julie, which says, who can you go to help gauge a realistic valuation? It's valuations. It as you guys can probably tell, it makes me sort of chuckle a bit. It's hard to gauge a risk. I mean, the way that I've done it is based off experience. So I've worked with a number of companies who are starting their raising journey very early. Or they're just raising their first round. And I think we typically go in at the sort of £1 million mark, because I personally think that's fair and that doesn't scare off investors. Once you start to inflate that and increase it, it starts to get a little bit sketchy. But I mean, it's all about what the market tells you, Julie, I think, and it's not a very good it's not a very good response, I guess. It doesn't really help. But if you set a valuation, then you went off to speak to a few investors, you would very quickly know if it's too high or you know, if it's not right for those investors. But I would say if you're starting out, you know, 800k post money to £1 million is probably, if I had to give you a definitive answer, that's where I'd probably put the business. I hope that's helpful. Again, valuation is a super hard thing. Is it a good idea to get investment when you've done a lot of tech development but are pre-revenue, or should we keep working side jobs until we've made sales? Again, really good question. I mean, it's all about timing, right? If you're taking that milestone approach and you can, and if you're comfortable working your side jobs and can sustain the business and move it on, then I would say keep doing that personally. If you can, if the business is suffering because you're all working side jobs and you can't move the business on because you haven't got enough time, that's a completely different thing. So with New Lane, I think there became a point where one of us, me or my co-founder Dom, had to go full time because the business was suffering and we were about to go and raise. So you know, it's about where you are in your life cycle. Again, if you can keep going, right, doing side jobs, I would do that. I would keep developing the business. I would get the business as valuable as you possibly can. And then I guess you'll feel when the time is right to jump. I hope that's useful. Just looking at a few more questions. How long did it take to compile your first draft pitch deck? And how many iterations until you finally secured your funding? So again, interesting. I mean, there's no real set time. I mean, you know, you make your own timelines and when you need to raise money and when you need to get it in by. It took, you know, we got a first draft done pretty quickly. As I say, I start when I'm going through the process with anyone with the business plan, because I basically say, right, founders, here's build a content and write everything you can about the market, the team and everything, get it into a big document. Let's make that look organized, and then let's turn that into a pitch deck. So I think, you know, as I say, you run your own timelines. You can work as quickly or as slowly as you like, but you know, you've got to get to a point and leave yourself enough time to then get out to investors. And then how many iterations you finally got? So many iterations. I mean, we iterate loads when it comes to the pitch deck. We kept making changes. Again, you know, I want to get this point across. It is quite a fluid process. You want to have a robust pitch deck that you're happy to put out to everyone. But at the same point, if you start getting feedback from certain investors where they say, yeah, it's really good, but I don't quite understand this, or you need more market stats, or you know, your financials look a bit weird, you can change them. You know, you can do it, and you can iterate as you are raising. And that's what we did. You know, we update the deck as we go because we start to learn various things and it starts to get better. I hope that helps, Charlotte. As someone from a disadvantaged background who does not have rich friends or family to invest in, the friends and family, where should I look? Really interesting question, Simon. I mean, it's if you don't have friends or family, I mean, a lot of people don't have friends or family to invest. It's a luxury. You know, if you haven't got friends of friends or anyone in your sort of smaller sphere who can help you, then that's not a problem. You know, because you know, it shouldn't be that much of a hindrance, to be honest with you. There are a lot of angels out there that you can do outreach. There are a lot of funds out there that you can reach out to. I mean, the place that I would start if you didn't have friends and family was to go to networking events, to look on LinkedIn, to look on Angel List, to look on all these places and find angel investors who you think could be interested and start reaching out to them. I think that's a really good thing to do. I mean, don't worry about the friends and family stuff. You know, friends and family, you typically form a very small part of a company's lifetime of funding. So if you haven't got that bit, forget it, move on to angels and start reaching out to people. I hope that's helpful, Simon. How would you go about valuing a tech company that's pre-revenue top down? I knew I was going to get loads of questions on valuation. The truth is, it's kind of what I said earlier. There is no scientific method that I've come across that works. There are a few calculations that people try and do to I can't remember what it's called right now. But again, you know, it's being fair. It's looking at your industry and seeing what people raise at. If you look on Crunchbase, you could probably find, and Crunchbase is a website that collates sort of investment rounds for companies. If you look on there, you can probably find another business that is doing something similar to you, and it will break down what they've raised at, what valuation. So you could have a look at that, and you could base it off that, or you could base it off the value that you think you've got. But again, put it out into the market and see what investors say. You know, if you want to be super punchy, then put a 2 million post money valuation. And if your first 4 investors that you speak to tell you that you're absolutely crazy, then reel it in and go back to them and say, you're right. So we've moved it to 1 million. That would be my perspective. But again, it is super difficult to, but have a look at Crunchbase, because there might be some interesting things on there. Just having a look again. If anyone wants to jump on stage, please feel free. I haven't got too much longer. If you guys have got any other questions, let me know. Again, if you need to, you can email me at josh@wearenewlane.com, and we can have another chat. If you send me some questions, just got another one through. This is about your brand of product, the helmet. What was the process, and when is it launching in the market? Good question. Sorry, the email address is josh@wearenewlane.com. I think Talia will put it in the chat box. But yeah, in terms of the helmet, yeah, we're creating a foldable helmet for cyclists and e-scooter users. The market has gone absolutely crazy. And we're hoping to launch in the next few months, but we've got some great investors on board. We're building a brand, we're shooting our content, our direct to consumer platforms are set up, we're creating partnerships, and hopefully we're launching in a few months time. Talia, do you just want to drop my email in the chat box, and people will be able to see it? Any other questions? I'll get a few more minutes. Have I missed any questions? Film industry seems to be very risky. Any comment on who could potentially invest? Oof, interesting. I mean, I haven't got any specific investors in the film industry, but again, have a look at Crunchbase, have a search around to see who's invested in the same businesses that you're setting up, and I would reach out to them. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are very interested in the film industry. Actually, one of my investors owns a cinema, which is interesting, a theatre in central London. So that could be interesting for you. If you send me a message with your pitch deck, I can probably make an introduction to him if that's what you need. But yeah, I mean, there are tools out there that can show you who's invested in what, and that's where I'd probably start. No problem. All right, guys, give it 2 more minutes. If you guys got any other questions, let me know. No worries. Thanks, Abir. Thanks for asking a question. Any other questions? Going once. You're a legend. Thank you. I'll email you, Josh. Thanks. No worries, Jasmine. Yeah, send me an email. I'll give you as much help as I possibly can. But I hope that's been helpful, guys. Oh, here we go. Have you regretted taking money from any investor? Ooh. Should I publicly share the horror story? I actually genuinely haven't. Our investors are a brilliant bunch of people. We've got really lucky. So the way that we're set up is we've got one big fund called the British Design Fund, if you want to look them up. And then the rest of them are all individuals and angel investors. And they're all brilliant. They've all been super supportive and help us. And we call on them when we need. I have got some horror stories which we could go into, but I've been led down garden paths before. I guess, again, it's that horrible saying, but if it's too good to be true, it probably is. We had people reach out to us that said, yeah, we'll do the whole investment round. And obviously it turned out to be fake and fictitious. I've even flown to Holland to meet someone at an airport multiple times, and it didn't work out. But all of our investors are great. I mean, it's probably an important point. I would be careful about who you take money from. I know sometimes, and this is horrible, but beggars can't be choosers. Sometimes when someone offers you money in a round, it's very hard to say no. But I think it is like a marriage, and you've got to make sure that the person that you're taking the money from is right for you. Because if they're not, and you think they're going to be a problem, your gut will tell you that I wouldn't take their money. to be honest. But yeah, I haven't regretted taking any money. Right, guys. Well, thank you so much. It's been great. Thanks for your questions. As I say, Josh at wearenewlane.com if you've got any questions. And I hope to hear from all of you soon. Thanks so much.